Hi, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Chloe, and I'm the coordinator of Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. For those of you who haven't attended a webinar with us before, Connecting Up is part of the Info Exchange group. And Info Exchange is a not-for-profit social enterprise that has delivered technology for social justice for over 25 years. With over 100 staff across Australia and New Zealand, we tackle the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. And I would like to welcome you all to the webinar, How to Harness Microsoft Power Automate to Digitise Your Paper Processes. It's a bit of a mouthful, which will be presented by Conan Daly and Lucy Reeves from the IT team, who you can see on your screens today. Before we begin, we will start with a bit of housekeeping today. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel, and I will be able to assist you. If you have any questions during the session, please also type it into the questions box, and Conan and Lucy will answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the audio and video of the webinar. If possible, please close all other programs to help you have the best experience. Please note this webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you as soon as we can after the webinar ends today. And before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there will be a short survey at the end of the webinar today. We would really appreciate if you took a few minutes to provide us with some feedback. So that's all from me. I'm going to pass you on to Conan and Lucy to begin today's session. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Great to have everyone here. This is a very exciting tool, and yeah, we think everyone attending, you're onto a winner, because often we do webinars and it's quite general, and this one's very specific, and it should be able to make a difference, we think. So yeah, obviously my name's Conan, and we've got Lucy here. It's great to have someone also on a webinar, because it feels like you're talking to yourself sometimes for an hour. So it's handy to have someone here to talk with a bit of credibility. So she knows a bit more about Power Automate and how it works than myself, which is great. So she'll be going through the demonstrations that we're going to be doing, and I'll sort of talk through the high level stuff. We want to start by putting up a couple of polls, or one of the sort of, the first thing we wanted to do is, before we start, is put up a few polls. So why don't we start with poll number 1, Chloe, which is just around getting an idea of what our audience here knows about Power Automate, or don't know about Power Automate, because we do know it is a bit of a unknown tool. It's a bit of a niche tool, you could say. So yeah, be honest, we don't see the results individually, yeah, it'll be good to see.
We'll just allow a couple more seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. So good mix. It's quite a different mix from a poll we did with our customer base, which is quite interesting. So I never heard of it before. Our customers, more of them had not heard of it, which is cool. So a pretty knowledgeable audience we have here. So 17% never heard of it. 33% have heard of it but not used it. 42% have played with it, but it's not used in the organization, and 8% have it actively used. We genuinely have attempted to make this webinar for all of these different sets, but this, giving an idea of the audience at the scale of each, I guess, segment, allows us to cater maybe a little bit more information, because it does look like quite a few are aware of it, but just don't have it embedded. So yeah, we're about to cover what we're going to cover shortly, but there is something for everyone. And then obviously, if it might not be clear, and it certainly isn't, that Microsoft Power Automate is part of the Office 365 suite. So we just wanted to put up one more poll just to understand if people are using Office 365. Do you want to shoot that, Chloe? Just because you're not using it doesn't mean you can't use Power Automate. It's just it does make it a little bit easier. Whoa, that makes it
Brilliant.
simple. Didn't expect that. Great. So everyone's using Office 365, nice and simple. I guess that's yeah, one of the reasons people are here. Very cool. Why don't we slide on to the next slide, Chloe? So what we're going to cover today, this is a bit of an idea about how we've sort of attempted to pitch this presentation. So why should you consider automating or going paperless? This isn't just about Power Automate. It's a little bit more to it, but you know, it really is around using that tool to perform automation and go paperless. There's some fun stuff with Power Automate, but it is best when you can actually apply it to your organization to benefit how you work. An outline of what Power Automate is and how it works. I might not have mentioned this, but Power Automate was recently called Flow, and so you may have heard of it as Flow, which was a better term in my opinion, but a better name for it, but you know, I don't make the decisions. The processes that you can automate, several examples that we use that we're going to show you how they work, and it might kind of get the juices flowing about how it could help your organization. Then lastly, other tools to consider that could assist automation and paperless, so outside the Power Automate system. Next slide. Now, what do we hope you take away? So how we've structured this is ideally you'll come away from this presentation understanding Power Automate, and by that being able to explain to someone, because it's not that easy, to be honest. Taking useful practical examples away to your organization, be confident that you could implement or start this yourself, or at least be keen to, and ideally start using Power Automate soon. Now, there might be, we've got a few questions at the end, but we are, spoiler alert, we are going to have a follow-up session in more detail. That's kind of a builder's workshop, but you know, it would kind of, how we build that will be depending on the responses and the interest, but that'd be more sort of for people that really want to dig in, but it is an accessible system. Yeah, I want you to go to the next slide, Chloe. Or Lucy, sorry. Excuse me, why did I think they're closed controlling the slides? Excuse me. So just a little bit about us. So the IT team, won't talk too much about this. So yeah, we've been around for a while. Office 365 is a big part of what we do. We perform support. Generally anything related to IT, anything that plugs in and turns on, we support. Most of our customers, or at least the largest sector, is not-for-profit, so we do work a lot with the not-for-profit sector. I'm sure there are some customers on this call as well, and we provide IT service to New Zealand and Australian organisations. Myself, so I'm the general manager, and I tend to do just whatever I can you know, do to keep myself busy, but also often working with new customers to bring them on board and understand their challenges and try and implement solutions that we can do for them. And then we have Lucy. Do you want to introduce yourself, Lucy?
Yeah, so I guess my primary day-to-day function is working in the service delivery side with our techies, so making sure they're getting things done for our customer base. But I'm passionate about process, which is why I've gotten so sort of dug in and involved with this. I'm not a techie. I do not have a technical background at all, but all of the demos and everything you'll see today are ones that I've built. So that's kind of just a wee example of how it is accessible, and as long as you've got a passion for it, it's something that you can go pretty far with.
Yeah, don't need an IT background to do these, to implement these.
Absolutely.
Before we go on to the next slide, Chloe, could you please put up poll number 4? I think it's poll number 4.
Which is around the paper-based processes?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Very organised here, folks. That's the one. So what do we want to know is, do you have processes that you're aware of in your organisation that are paper-based and could benefit from being automated? Now, obviously, with the COVID situation, they might be less paper-based and more sort of partially paper-based, or they've been put on hold while you're working from home, or you're continuing to work like that. Okay, that's good. So a number, that's what we expected. And some might have pushed forward or just don't have the paper-based processes, which is cool. So yeah, brilliant. I don't have to skip this next slide. So why would you consider automation or going paperless, or paperlessness, or whatever you want to call it? There's the environmental side, which is obviously a part of it. And we didn't necessarily implement some of our processes for the environmental side, but we'll talk it up as though we did. Other reasons are to improve and accelerate processes, just doing things better. Now, implementing processes easily, so that is a way to consider it, is you can actually implement them easy. Sometimes it's quite hard to organize a paperless process, especially if you're across multiple locations. Another reason is to allow your organization to function in a lockdown or remote working scenario, and generally it keeps a tighter. It keeps records tighter because it doesn't allow them to literally get lost in a table on my desk, which we'll talk about soon. So those are just some of the reasons. Before we go on to the next one, Chloe, could you put up poll number 3? There aren't too many more polls, folks. A bit poll heavy up front, but we kind of thought we'd get the information out there. So we're hoping that one of the reasons you've attended this is to find out about the tool, but obviously to try and perform some automation or paperlessness. So we'd love to hear. You can select multiples, what your reasons are. And if you don't have any, then you don't have to tick anything, or just tick environmental, because that's probably the nice thing to do.
Just waiting a few more seconds.
Cool. Yeah, it's a complicated one, isn't it?
Yeah. All right.
Okay, environmental, good call. Speed up process is excellent. Lockdown is a small part, but it is some motivation. Ensure processes are followed and establish more paper trail. So we've got a really good mix. 82% of candidates have selected speed up processes and ensure they're followed, which is excellent. So if we were doing a Power Automate presentation before lockdown, as in before we even knew that was going to be going down, we would have been discussing the fact that ensuring processes followed is a key issue in organizations. Okay, next slide.
Alrighty.
Okay, so just some processes that are commonly paper-based that we've seen, and in some cases we have automated using Power Automate. So timesheets, that's a big one. Can be paper-based or whatever else based, card-based, even email-based isn't really ideal. Purchase requests. And so what we mean by that is, when a staff member needs to make a purchase, whether it be a credit card or some form of purchase for the organisation, often they need to fill out a form. Expense claim, that's generally more when a individual has a staff member has made a personal expense, personal purchase, and needs to claim it back, but there could be other types, of course. Health and safety incidents is a big one, and often one that is paper-based because it's used so infrequently and therefore never gets used because people don't even know where the paper is or the forms are, and it's a handy one to have at the ready. Travel requests, new client forms, potentially you're taking on new clients, you need them to sign up, and staff inductions, bringing on new staff. There can be a lot of paper in that, whether it be contract or getting information on their personal information, and I forget the Australian IRD number. You have to tell me that, Chloe. What's the sort of tax number?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do all individuals in Australia have a tax number that would generally be provided?
An ABN. Yeah, an ABN.
ABN, that's right, ABN number. So the ABN number, gathering that information is often paper-based, even though we're in a digital world, because it's a bit easier and we feel it needs to be official. So these are some of the things that you may have that are paper-based and may not have sort of realised, or considering you all selected yes, you probably did. All right, we'll continue to the next slide. So what is Power Automate? So we had a couple of slides on this and some bullet points, and then we found a video that was 2 minutes of Microsoft effectively kind of making it a bit more pretty, making the description of what it is or attempting to describe it a bit cleaner and more visual. So we thought we'd play this video and then explain in more detail following that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just switch over to that now, and then we'll jump back into the slideshow.
Thank you.
And here we go.
Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me, both of us.
Yep, you should
Cool.
be good to
All
go.
good.
Brilliant. So yeah, that was just we thought that would accelerate the description, but just to add more. So it's a Microsoft product. It's part of what they call Microsoft Power Platform that includes things like Power BI, but you don't need to use Power BI to use this. It was called Microsoft Flow, which we mentioned, which is, in my opinion, a slightly better description of it, but that's okay. It's for organizations and individuals, so it can be used personally, as in individually, so for tasks in your work, or personally potentially as well, or it could be organization-wide. Most of what we're going to talk about today is the organizational-wide applications of this stuff, but there is a little bit on the personal side. It's low or no code. So what we mean by that is, often Power Automate is doing what you would traditionally get a developer to build, like building an app or building a process, a routine, as they call it. And this is effectively doing that without having to do any code. So it's basically a drag and drop system for creating an application in a way. And there are many pre-made templates available that you can easily create and deploy. Let's continue.
Alrighty, so what does a flow actually look like? So we're obviously using this word flow, which is what each of the sort of runs and things you'll be making is still called. I haven't changed them to be called Power Automates yet, thank goodness for that. But this is what a flow looks like. So all of the demos and things we're going to be doing today are going to show you more from the user side, so the people that are interacting with the flows, but this is essentially what the back end is. So it's split into simple steps that you can add, you can change. You'll always start off with a trigger. So for the sort of screenshot that we've got there, it's when a response is submitted to a form, and then you'll use that trigger to figure out what actions you want to do next. So things like sending emails, doing approvals, and all the other things that had in the wee demo video there as well. So this is what the back end looks like. It's not too scary. It all sort of whips itself up neatly into just a little flow chart for you, and you can tinker around with each of the different steps. So how does a flow actually start? So I've touched on the fact that you have triggers. So a trigger can be a range of different things depending on what sort of applications you're wanting to tie in. So you can use a trigger from when you receive an email, when a form gets filled out, which we're going to touch on briefly in the next slide as well, when a document gets uploaded to somewhere like SharePoint or your OneDrive. You know, it could be things like when your company gets mentioned in a tweet. There's all sorts of things you can use to kick these off. You can also run them on buttons. So you would have seen in the video that there is a mobile app that you can get as well. And from there, you can set up different things to run when you jump in there and click them. And we do have a couple of demos of that at the end as well. And you can also set them to run on schedules. So you can, pick that you want something to happen at 7:30 every morning or once a month. So the sky is kind of the limit with that, depending on what you're looking to do. So Microsoft Forms is something we thought would better just do a quick explanation of. So it's not part of Power Automate, it's just part of the Office 365 suite. So if you've got an Office 365 license, you've got this already, and you may have played around with it. It's essentially just a really quick, easy to build survey tool or sort of area where you can go to gather information from your team. So we use them for all sorts of things. We've used them for doing quizzes, we use them for feedback forms, that sort of thing. But when it comes to Power Automate, we use them a lot for getting information from the team, so that we can send that off to the right person for either an approval or so that it can update, a back-end spreadsheet, that sort of thing. So it's super easy to use. You can jump in there and have a form up and running, in a matter of minutes. And then the actual integrations with Power Automate are super easy to use as well. So you'll see reference to this through quite a lot of the demos that we'll be doing. So speaking of the demos, we're going to jump into a few here. So like I said, we've kept them to be more the end user, so the interface that they're going to be interacting with, rather than the back end, how to build them. Conan touched on the fact that we'll be doing sort of a deeper dive session where if you want to actually learn how to make them in real step by step, we can go into that. But like you said, there are templates that can get you started really quickly as well. So we'll touch on that briefly at the end as well. Now, we wanted to fit quite a variety in, so there's a few that we'll go through, and hopefully these will sort of start spinning in your mind where these could be useful in your organization as well, and what sort of things you think you could use them for that would save you a wee bit of time. So the first one that we're going to run through is our internal purchases approval system. So what is this? It's just a process to request approval if you're wanting to buy something for internal use, or if you're wanting to use our company credit card. So how does it work? We're going to start this one off with a Microsoft form. The approval then gets sent through to whoever it is you've nominated that needs to approve it. And then if it does get approved, the details then get sent on to the accounts team as well. So it does a whole bunch of things in the back end there. And whoever's actually wanting to make the request, they just need to input the information, and then they'll get told on the other end whether or not that has gone through. So what did we used to do? Conan, you might want to talk to this.
Yeah, so mostly my fault, but how we do internal purchases. So as Lucy explained earlier, that this was when a staff member, we're an IT company and people want to purchase things, not necessarily for customers. This was for us, so they might need to purchase a piece of software, an ongoing service, or maybe even just getting a headset or a new mouse or whatever. And we liked it to be paper-based just so people weren't buying stuff willy-nilly. So people would fill out a form and then get it to sign off by perhaps myself, put it on my desk. If I was away, it often got lost, buried, or forgotten. Sometimes I'd get it and I'd go, okay, I need to ask someone whether this is actually needed or check in with someone else. And then that would be delayed until I usually saw them or something like that, because it was a physical thing. I could obviously go to the printer and scan it and then email it, but I just usually couldn't be bothered. That sounds terrible, but it's a little bit true. And then because of sometimes my lack of availability or poor following of the process, people would circumvent it. If it was urgent, they'd go, okay, well, this is too slow, I don't have time, I'm just gonna charge ahead. And then if the process was perfectly followed, it often wasn't filed. And so it would defeat the validity of the approval process. And then people would then further circumvent the process. So you had all these things, and we had good intent, and we had not a terrible system or process identified, but just the way it was paper-based meant that it had so much opportunity to fail. And then over time, the more times it failed, it's just snowballs. And so in the end, you kind of look back and go, why aren't we doing this process anymore? But yeah, that was how that worked.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to jump into a wee demo video here. So like I touched on, we do a lot of our things using Microsoft Forms. So this little video here is going to kick off. It is on our SharePoint site. So you see there, the beautiful People Hub is where we're going to go. That's all of our team. So I'll kick this running and just talk to it. So we keep I guess we have a SharePoint site so everyone can jump into these. They can also jump into them from Teams, but we have one site that's got all of our company forms stuck in it in one place. And once we jump into that, you'll see we do use this for a lot of our processes. So it's things like purchases, it's things like health and safety. Here we go. So if you have we've got a wee purchasing section, health and safety, and then other things as well. So we use it for stuff like stock movements, all that sort of stuff. For this particular example, we're going to be clicking on I need to place an order for an internal purchase. So like I mentioned, that could be people wanting to buy a new piece of IT equipment or software. For the demo that we've put out here, coffee beans, there you go. So the demo that we're doing here is for some coffee beans, very important at the moment. Obviously, coffee is an essential service. So this is what a form looks like as well. Like I said, you can customize it quite a lot to get all the information you need out of people. we want to make sure we know whether or not it's recurring. We want to know who needs to approve it as well. And as soon as all this information's been filled out, we'll go ahead, we'll click submit, and then done. So your response is submitted. And from the end user side, that's all they need to do with regards to data input. So pretty quick and easy for them. And like I say, they can do them on the go on their phones if they need to. Otherwise, it's just a matter of a couple of clicks on our SharePoint site.
Mm. And you don't need to use SharePoint to access a form. You could have it in a bookmark or anything, anywhere. Yeah, just
exactly. Yeah, a lot of people probably have that company forms page bookmarked, I hope, because they use it all the time. So we're jumping into my emails now. So I was the person who submitted that form. So I'm going to be getting an email in a minute. And I'm also the person who was set to approve it. So I'm kind of circumventing the system a wee bit there, approving my own purchase, but we'll take a look and see what it looks like. So we've had a new email come in, and that there is just confirming that I've submitted a request. So I'm the person who popped that request through. So I get a wee email confirmation saying, hey, you submitted this request. These are the details, and it just means I've got that on my records. Now, because I was also the person who was set to approve this, that second email has come through. So this is what an approval email looks like. So any approval flows that you set up are going to look like this. So the person's going to get that email that says, hey, this person has made this request. These are all of the details. And I'll just pop that on pause for a second. So you see here, it's got all the information that I put in that form. You can make this look a lot prettier than I have if you want to, but it gets the information through. And then you've got these two examples. You get two options, so you can approve it or you can reject it. Now take note, so I've clicked on the reject button there, and I'm able just to interact with that right in the email as well. So it's not asking me to go out to an external system. I can just do everything in here, and we'll take a look and see what it does once I've gone through and click the submit button. So for this one, I'm gonna reject the order. We already have coffee beans on order, which are arriving tomorrow, so we do not need to buy more.
And we're at home.
We do not need to, we don't need to buy them from the house. And there you go. So again, it's all within this email system. So it's gone ahead. If I'm ever, as the approver, if I'm ever going back there and having a look to see what I did, I can see pretty quickly that, hey, I went ahead and rejected that approval. It also keeps track of all of those on the Power Automate website. And you can also jump into the Flow app. So you'll see here, it's got a little thing saying get the Flow app to receive push notifications. You can get that on your phone. You'll get a little pop-up if anyone ever does assign an approval to you. And you can actually just do it really easily from within the app. And it gives you the same options, approve, reject, and you can add wee notes and things as well.
It doesn't look like there's nothing overly impressive about this, but what is impressive is just how simple and easy it is. You don't need any other systems. It's an email. I personally, my impressions of this and using it, because I didn't set it up, I didn't even know we needed to set it up. I just got told, hey, we're using this new system. Get these forms to my email. I can click on them on my mobile phone, not even using the app, just using email. If I went back to them, because sometimes I wasn't sure if I'd approved something or not, just because sometimes there was a high volume of requests come through, it's already approved if I've approved it, so I don't double up, and just allows us to move very quick and keep track of everything. So yeah, this then allowed us to take more confidence in saying to people, you must follow this process.
Exactly, we've made it so easy that there's no reason not to.
Yeah, that's right. Even if you need something quick, it's it only takes a minute to fill out the form, so just do it.
Yeah. So there's one more step to this as well. So obviously I've gone ahead and rejected that. And then the last thing is, as the person who made that request, I'm going to get an email to let me know about that. You could set these up to go directly into Teams as well. So if you're an organization that uses Teams, you could set those pop-ups to go into there rather than to emails. But here we go. So my internal purchase request has been declined, unfortunately. Now, if it was approved, the way that we've got these set up is because they're internal purchases, we've actually got all that information. It would fire off to the accounts team. If it was a purchase that needed the credit card or something, they'd be able to get those details through to whoever made the request, or they'd be able to, you can set up a process to assign purchase order numbers if you need to keep track of things like that as well. So it's pretty good, pretty slick. Gets all the information to the right people quickly, which is pretty important. So what do we actually use these for? So we use them for internal purchases, credit card approvals, credit approvals as well. So if we're having to give credit to make sure it goes past the right person. Time off request is something that we've set it up and sort of played around with, but because we've got sort of our own time logging system, we don't need to make use of this. But you can get quite smart with it, add extra steps in at the end to automatically block out your calendar if it gets approved. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So we've had these in place for, I believe, about 18 months, probably a little bit longer since we wrote this. And we calculated we've saved over 200 hours of sort of manual time, which is outrageous when you think about it.
And we're not a
It's
huge
great.
organisation, so if you're big, you'd save a ton.
Exactly, and it means that forms are actually getting done as well. So if you think about it, there's processes that are getting followed that just wouldn't have been before. All right, so next demo we are going to jump into is the important notifications. So this is the demo we're going to run through is for our health and safety team. So getting notifications to them when there are things like incidents, near misses, or if there's potentially hazardous on-site work taking place. So our team will obviously go out on site to do quite a lot of work, and there'll be different applications depending on what your organization does on a day-to-day basis. How does it work? Again, we're going to collect this info on a Microsoft form. It's just easy. It's an easy way to get stuff. They can do it on their phones, which is really great if it's people that are out and about. And then we're going to get notified directly in Teams from this as well. Benefits of that is it means that whoever needs to be notified gets notified immediately. You know, we're in and about Teams all the time, so you get that information real fast. So what do we used to do, Conan?
Oh, for important notifications. Email would come through. Usually someone would send an email or would have an automated email. Phone call, a paper form, which isn't great. There will be no central record, and just sometimes the important notification wouldn't go to anyone, which is even worse. So yeah, it wasn't great.
Exactly.
You just can't, you know, sometimes you might think that any kind of important notification is best done verbally, but sometimes you can't rely on it being initiated or getting to multiple people at the same time. And, you know, so setting it up to spread it to as many people as you can be the right way to do it.
Exactly, and it doesn't mean that you can't follow up with a phone call. It just means that the paper trail's there right from the start, which is pretty important for these sorts of things. Right, so we're going to jump into a wee demo for this one. So I'll click down there. This is our health, safety, wellness hub. So this is where everyone in the company goes for anything related to that. And we're going to go ahead and access this. I need to complete an on-site work form. So again, super useful way, quick way just to get all the information we need in one place. For things like health and safety notifications, there's really key information that you're always going to need to get. So this just means that your team is going to be guided through to give you exactly what you need. Make sure that you are, you know, sticking to your regulations, getting everything you need in the first place. You don't have to go back and forwards all the time, and you can really quickly identify whether or not there's an issue that you actually need to action. So we're going to go ahead, we're doing some on-site work, but we're going to be following all the health and safety guidelines, and we don't think there's anything too concerning about this one. But we are working at heights, which is why we're going ahead and filling out this form. So we'd go ahead, we'd click next, and that would just give us the wee option to submit there. And that is all, again, the end person has to do. So might be out and about on site and about to do this work, and they just need to get it checked off. So our health and safety team, we've got a team within Teams. This is, if you're not using dark mode, this may look a wee bit different to you. But we've got our health, safety, wellness committee have got a little on-site work notifications channel. So essentially, if anything ever gets notified through that form, they're going to get a pop-up. They're going to get alerted straight away. So you can see here, a new on-site work checklist has been completed by me. They just asked to review the details, get in touch. And the way that we actually store this information, again, so that we've always got it as a reference point, is we've got a flow, that flow is set up to also update a spreadsheet. We've got that pinned to the top of Teams. And straight away, as soon as you get that pop-up, you can jump into here, you can have a look. Those of you who are familiar with Excel, which I hope you all are, you can set up a wee bit of conditional formatting to make sure you're able to pick out the areas of concern straight away. So this is what our team does. It doesn't have to happen very often. We're not often doing dangerous work on site, thank goodness. But it means that if we are, it just happens quickly. The health and safety team can really quickly chat about who's picking this up and who's going to help address any concerns that have come up as well. So it means that we can be pretty sure about the process being followed. So like I said, we use this for health and safety notifications, so that's also incidents, hazards, that sort of thing, but also security incidents and breaches, so that's IT security. So if we notice, you know, some sort of hacking event that's gone on, that sort of thing, we've got a form that we can fill through for that, and again, it gets popped up there for the right people. All right, so this one's a wee bit different. So this is our daily stand-up demo. So this is a tool to allow us to gather a few key bits of information from our engineering team mainly based on around their workloads looking for the day. And again, for you, there might be a different set of data that you need to be gathering from your team every day in a really easy, quick way that doesn't weigh them down too much. So we've got a few different ways that we can get this info. We've got a Power App, which we'll show you. We've got a Teams bot, which you can set up super quickly in Power Automate as well. And that information gets collated through to a spreadsheet, which has a daily report that, that the managers can take a look at as well. And that way they can shuffle around work if need be. So we'll kick in and take a look at the Power App to start with. Now, Power Apps are another part of the Power Suite. They are, Power Automate is sort of obviously the no-code drag and drop making processes automated. This is the no-code drag and drop making apps, which is pretty handy. It needs, you do need to spend a bit of time learning the ropes and everything, but it's pretty quick, and whipping up something like this is pretty easy to do in sort of an hour or so. So our team in the morning, they can jump in here. They can get to this through Teams as well. You can pin apps in there, or they can go straight to the website or the app on their phone. They're going to go ahead and go, hey, welcome to Stand Up. I'm ready to submit my entry for today. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And it's going to give me the front end. This isn't a form, but it does the same job. So it gathers all the info that we need. So I just want to find out how busy are they today with different types of work, and if they've got any notes that they need to let the team know about. They might be popping out for lunch, or they might be scheduled on site, that sort of thing. Now, again, you're probably going to want quite different information from your teams depending on what your day-to-day activities are. But whatever it is that you need to get, this is a great way to get it all at the start of the day. So
we were previously having these on actual stand-up meetings, and the challenge was you'd get this information via conversations, and people go, and it's just slower. And then we thought if we can gather the information before the meeting, we can actually make the meeting practical for making decisions about this. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So we'll just go ahead, click submit on that, and we are good to go. And again, you don't have to put too much thought into it when you're putting that information in. You just put it in straight away, and it allows us to take a look and make really quick decisions, I guess. If we see a bunch of people saying that they're really busy and a few people saying they're not, we can jump in there straight away. So the other way that you can get this, which is quite fun, this is one of the fun ones, you can make chatbots through Power Automate really easily as well. So we're going to get exactly the same information, but just from Teams instead. So for something like a stand-up app, you might set this to run on a schedule, say every morning it's at 7:30 if your people are early birds, or maybe a wee bit later if they're not. You'll get this to pop up, prompt them for exactly the same bits of information, and then they can just submit straight from there. The good thing about doing it on Teams is that your team will get notified when it happens, rather than the Power App where it relies them to jump in and actually do that themselves, or if you decided just to go with the Microsoft form again. Teams is a good reminder for them if you set it to come up at the right time. And also it means they don't need to leave the application if it's where they're spending a fair bit of their day too. So it's just keeping it all in one spot, which is nice. So we're going to go ahead, fix our typos, and submit. And it's going to give us a nice little thank you for submitting. And like I said, exactly the same information we gathered in the last bit through the app as well. And it goes to the same place. So we've got this set up to go to a wee spreadsheet like this. Something nice and simple. You could do a lot, you could make some nice graphs and things in there, but this does the job for us. So it shows us who's checked in so far that day. You'll see that entry there is the one that I've just done. So kind of a 3 for busyness, so not too bad. We can go ahead and match those people up that are really overloaded, not so overloaded, and also follow up on people like AJ and Igor who have not checked in today because it's 10 a.m. and they probably should have been at work already. So it kind of it solves a few problems, which is quite good. And yeah, it all just gets into one place. Occasionally.
Brilliant.
All right. So another couple of these. So document approval. Now this is one that heaps of people have asked about. It's something that's really easy to set up, and we're actually going to set it up in the demo as well, and it takes all of about 30 seconds. And it's something that is universal across all companies. You all have documents that you need to get approved, signed off by people before you can take your next step on them. So this can be useful for sort of board documents, sales proposals, marketing campaigns, a whole bunch of different things depending on what you do. So how does it work? This one's built directly into SharePoint. So we are going to set this up without even having to go to the Power Automate website. You can also do it from OneDrive as well, not just SharePoint. The item that you pick gets sent for approval, and then there's a wee status column that you can keep tabs on how you've gone. So this is SharePoint site here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up this automation directly from here. So you'll see on the menu options up here, there's one that says automate. You'll all have this already up the top there, and even if you haven't set this flow up, we're going to be able to do it pretty quickly. So we want that marketing campaign, and we want to request sign off for it. So even if you haven't set this up before, that option's going to be there, and it's just going to prompt you to go ahead and set the flow up. So there you go, create a flow. We're just going to click to go ahead and do that. We'll just double check to make sure it's going to fill our purpose. So cool, it lets you send an item to others to get their approval. That's all we need to do. And you'll just click create. First time you do it, it might prompt you for a couple of permissions potentially, but otherwise it's going to take 10 or so seconds and it's done. So you've just created your first flow. This is a super easy one. Anyone could go away and do that from now. It's going to ask you for 2 bits of information. So who do you want to approve this? And if you want to send them a message as well, so you can add a wee note in there. For this one, we're getting Miriam to go ahead and just make sure that they're happy with this marketing campaign before we send it out. So once you've got all the info you want in there, you just click run. So like I said, we've not, that wasn't set up before. During the demo, we actually went ahead and created that, so it's pretty speedy. You'll notice that there is this column called sign-off status, the 4th column along. And this is where you keep track of whether or not this has been approved. So about, I don't know, a minute after you probably send that request off, it's going to update in that to pending. And then as soon as you get the approval, that's going to update itself as well. So there you go, easy as to set up your first flow. But let's see what happens. So we're going to jump across to Miriam's email. So this is the person that we asked to approve it. And we're going to have a look at the message she has gotten. So she's been asked to please approve that marketing campaign. Now, there is a slight difference in this one from the last approval email we got. You'll notice that there's a link in there as well. So because you're approving a document, you want to be able to actually go and have a look at that document and make sure you're happy with it. So you can jump in there, go and have a look, have a peek through, make sure you do approve of all the content that's going out. And once you've done that, you get to go ahead and approve it. So we'll skip forward to the next wee bit. So we have, well, Miriam has decided she's happy with that. She's going to go through and click approve. And exactly the same set of behavior is going to happen as the first demo we looked at. So on the other end, Megan, who requested that approval, she's going to get the email saying, hey, this has been approved. But the other thing that's going to happen is that column is going to be updated inside of SharePoint as well. So if you keep an eye, you'll see that sign-off status is pending now. Any second now, it's going to update to approved. There'll be an email. There we go. There'll be an email that will have come through to Megan at the same time as well to say that that's all been approved by Miriam. So really quick, easy to track, easy to keep tabs on. And again, that approval thing, your manager can do it from their phone. They can do it from the website. They can do it from their emails, wherever they are. So it's a very, very quick one to get set up. All right, so the last couple of demos we're going to do are on buttons. So buttons are part of that mobile app. You just click them to start a flow, and they've got a big focus more on the personal productivity side for these than the organization-wide. So they're quite fun. There's a lot of templates that you can get started with, and some of them are a wee bit gimmicky, like getting the weather sent to you every day, but they can be quite neat as well. So we'll take a look at this one here. We'll go over to the browse section. Like I said, there's a lot of different templates that you can get started with. The one that we're going to focus on is clicking a button to email a note to yourself. But you'll see you can set yourself reminders, and 10 minutes from now, you can get the weather if you really want to. There's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can do. So this one here is pretty simple. From the app, you're just able to press the button. It's going to ask you for a couple of bits of information, and then it's going to send you an email. That's really handy if you are out and about, you're out on the go and you want to make sure you remember to do something when you get back. There you go. So again, you don't need to go to the Flow website, anything like that. You can do this straight from your phone and set them up. You can share them with your colleagues if you think it would be helpful for them. So it's
and that's to create one that you're going to repeat over and over and over.
Yeah, so really exactly. So this is, it's now going to be saved into your little button section on here forever. So it says click a button to email a note one, and we'll just run it and watch and see what it does. So it's going to prompt you for a little bit of information. pretty basic, and you can obviously customize whatever you want this to say. For this one, I just wanted to set myself a wee reminder to email someone or call someone when I get back to my desk. And that just means that when I do eventually get back to my desk, because I'm out and about when I'm setting this, I'm going to have an email sitting there ready to go that's going to remind me.
Obviously not groundbreaking because it's not hard to email yourself, but we want to just keep it simple so you kind of understood how it works.
Exactly. It's just an example of how quick they are to do, how quick and easy they are. There you go. You'll get notified once it's done. It'll just sit there and it will go started. So you do all know what emails look like, I am sure, but you'll notice I've got one notification and hey, it's that email. Don't forget to do this. Well, it happens pretty quickly. Something a wee bit more interesting. So we're going to have a look at this blocking out my calendar for gaps tomorrow. So if you're anything like me, your calendar fills up pretty quickly, and gaps, I think Conan said, a gap is a sign that you're free for a meeting. So if you know that you've got something that you need to do work on, sometimes it's good just to block those little opportunities out so that other people don't fill them for you. So we're going to go ahead, click on that option there, and the only thing it's going to ask us for is what are we wanting to block out the time for. So I've got a few things that I need to get done tomorrow. I need some focus time. So all I'm going to do, enter that, click done. And in the back end, Power Automate's going to go through, have a look at my calendar, see what gaps I've got. It automatically looks for ones that are 60 minutes. So it's going to run through there and then it's going to fill them out for us. All right, so it has run. Brilliant. So let's jump in to the calendar and take a look.
You can do it for the whole week as well if you.
Yeah. So we did this for tomorrow.
Up.
Tomorrow's Friday last week or 2 weeks ago. You see I've got a few gaps in there and boom. See, we bet Power Automate to it, but they've popped up while we've been in there. So it's pretty neat. I mean, again, it's the stuff that works for one person at a time. It's not the organization-wide things, but lots of people can get this set up. And if you are someone who this is useful for, you'll be more than happy to spend the 10 minutes it takes to get it set up as well. So it's pretty handy stuff. How to start. So rather than doing a sort of demo on how to actually build one, get into the system, flow.microsoft.com, I think we've got that a wee bit later on, and start with templates. Get used to the back end, and then think of a process that you're struggling with and just give it a go. There'll probably be a template there already that you can start playing around with, but I'd definitely recommend that you go to the site and start with templates so that you can sort of learn what things are supposed to look like and how the inputs all work.
Cool. So other systems that you could use Power Automate for, there's things in the templates around keeping track of social media updates, automating some of the activity. I think there's one around if you get a new Twitter follower, adding them to your CRM. There's a lot related to CRM, which could be quite cool. Team quiz scoring we've obviously done, which is pretty cool, and induction process is a big one we haven't talked about. There's tons of them, and there's heaps of preset ones in there. While we have talked about having a workshop to delve deeper, I just want to stress that doesn't mean that you need that. We'd love it if people went away and tinkered, and even if you don't get anything implemented, you may get a better understanding and just get some things implemented for yourself. If any of the and we'll come back to this a bit later, but if any of the items that we've showed look like they could be, with a bit of variation, applicable to you, it's not a massive leap to get it implemented. You'll spend more time explaining to your team what you've done rather than setting it up. Yeah, but there's lots online.
All right, so now, a few other systems.
Yeah, is this one for me or one for you, Lucy?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we just wanted to go through a couple of other services that we're that are kind of in the paperless automation sort of segment. So PandaDocs, this is one that we use for our proposals. So it's a digital paperless proposal-based system for quotes and proposals. So if you're currently delivering proposals or some form of document to clients or customers or something, you might want to consider looking at a system like this to make it digital. They're really easy to build, to use existing systems like Word, but also it allows you to track activity and also track the quantities of numbers if you've got things like that in there, and obtain sign-off, as you can see in this screenshot down here. And that's quite important. So we use it for our proposals and contracts and staff contracts and that kind of thing. It allows us to get a digital signature. It's very handy given what's going on at the moment. And I think we all know that getting paper to people might be a bit harder in the future. So it's a good thing to look at. Next slide, Lucy. And this is just another example of how it actually looks in operation. So you've got a document like you would have in employment contracts, and you can see if you send it to old Eugene, you can see that they've viewed it, they've sent it, they've edited it. Actually, Eugene looks like there's the person that created it. Whoops. But if it's a recipient, you can send it to them and see how far they've gotten through. It doesn't say they've read this text. It just says when they've opened it and when they've signed it and that kind of thing. So it can be quite handy, and people can post comments in there. If you create proposals, contracts, maybe new client forms and that kind of thing, and you're currently scanning them to customers by paper and getting them to scan them back, and it's a little bit awkward, this is a system I would highly recommend you consider. Next one. Office Lens. So this is just something else that maybe it's kind of a bit of a, we're talking about paperlessness, and this is about continuing with paper. But Office Lens is part of Office 365, and it's alternative to a scanner. So if you've got a scanner at home or in the office, and now you don't have a scanner at home, or you might be just using your phone camera, which is effectively a little bit of what this does, you might want to consider Office Lens. It's free, works with iOS and Android. It's effective at capturing the text on the document, and it's very useful in this scenario. I had to teach my brother to use it because he kept on, he lives next door, and he kept on wanting me to use my scanner, which wasn't very, smart. This next image shows an example of what it does. So yeah, you basically take a photo of it effectively with the app, but then it puts it into a form that makes it look like it's been scanned by a scanner. Very handy. You can send it along. You can edit text even, usually, depending on how well it scans. It's pretty cool. So highly recommend that if you or your staff are grappling with how to scan documents, and maybe if your staff member is saying, I need you to buy me a brother scanner or something, you could just say, get this app. So where to from here? So this is just as we move to wrap. We've got a couple of common questions, frequently asked questions we'll go through. But from here, we'd love you guys to start considering which processes could be automated. You might just look at it and start to go, okay, I'm going to automate that. We want to change that. We want to improve that. Or we've got this process that's sort of not really put into a process that it's not paper-based, but if we just, currently we're not as systemized. So maybe your staff members are just, or your colleagues are just purchasing things and asking for verbal approval, and you're kind of realizing that maybe we could tighten up on that. Start identifying those areas of the organization that could be improved on. Ideally, getting started yourself. Go in there, have a bit of a browse, have a bit of a play. Ask us for a template if you'd like. Now, if you think you would prefer not to delve into the technical side of it, we could assist you. You can just let us know. But and the key thing is, even if you don't want to do it yourself, what hopefully we've showed you now is that it is so easy, and so it's easy for us to actually implement as well, or a professional, or your IT provider, or one of your staff. So it is an easy system. It doesn't require heavy development and heaps of time, which is cool. So even if you don't want to do it yourself, it can be quick for others to help you. Download the mobile app for a bit of a play. We've got a blog on Power Automate, and it's kind of covers some of the things we talked about today in a bit more detail. Feel free to have a look at that. And then go to flow.microsoft.com on your web browser, which has a lot of the templates, and you can get started. So just some common questions before we get to the questions section. How shall I get started? As we suggested, going to that flow.microsoft.com is a really good place to start. I think, but also look, basically it's the content on the previous slide. Go to that site, consider which processes could be automated. We'll give you some great benefit. Which licenses are required? It's a bit of an interesting question. Because it's not too obvious. How Power Automate works is, what I'd say is that if you have an Office 365 license that's something like Business Essentials or E1, which a lot of not-for-profits will be on, you will be able to use Power Automate in your organization. They do they can charge if you use a certain number of processes, I think it is. There's a terminology I've forgotten, but if you're using it heavily, you might start to incur charges in the future. But yeah, that's more if you start to use it as, if you're doing processes every other minute, so if it becomes part of your, I guess, business or organizational engagement with your customers or clients, yeah, you could be in a position where it starts to charge, but they would tell you that. So it's effectively a free service to get started, and there wouldn't be any costs associated with it. Can you get hold of the example templates that we've provided? Yes. Feel free to reach out to us if you would like any of those. Does you need Office 365? That's pretty average on our part. Whoopsie. Do you need Office 365? Not necessarily, but it makes it a lot easier. But fortunately, everyone ticked yes at the beginning. If we don't have paper processes, is this valuable? Yes, it is. As I said, I personally believe that, unless it's just you in your organization, it does help to have approval. It does help to have processes. So, holidays, going on holidays. If you're in a situation where people just say, hey, I'm going on holiday next week, or I'm going on holiday in 3 months, that can be improved by having a process that not only gets approved, but also gets filed and also potentially puts it in a leave calendar for your team. You might think, we like to interact with each other. Yeah, fair play. I don't want to argue with that. I think it's harder though now that we're all distributed. But I would suggest that processes, even if you don't have the process or they're not paperless, paper-based, you could get benefit from this. Are we too small? I would suggest if it's just one of you, you're too small. If there's 2 or 3, I'd imagine, or 3 plus, there could be a value for this. But you let me know how small you are and maybe explain the situation, and yeah, I could offer maybe a better answer to that. But I believe that most organizations with a number of staff could get benefit from this. Do you need a developer or techie to do this? The answer, as I said earlier, is no. But if you're getting stuck, it is very easy for them to make great progress. 10 years ago, that if you wanted to do some of these things, you'd be talking about some pretty hefty development bills to build a software app, or you'd be looking for something out of the box to do exactly what you want. And this is kind of taking the going right in the middle of those without really much cost. Next. I think we're on to questions, aren't we?
We are indeed.
Okay. So.
Great. We've got quite a few questions, so we'll see what we can get through. And if we don't get through everyone's questions, we will send out a link to answers at the end of this session for people as well. So a question from Julie is, can we allocate unique numbers to the forms or approvals?
You could do. It would depend very much on what situation it was as to how you would do that, which system you'd use to do it, but absolutely there'll be a way to make them all unique and give them identifiers.
So that'd be the submissions or the actual form? It'd be the submission, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so when you click submit, that particular, I guess, entry into a form could be given a unique ID.
And you'd be able to program that through the flow.
Yeah, it's got what's called a response ID, and if you do go in and have a peek at the actual back end of it, you can get that response ID out and then do whatever you need to do with it as well. So if you need to record that in a spreadsheet beside the other information you've gotten in, or track that somewhere else for your records, you can do that.
Brilliant. Andrew says that he didn't know that email interaction was supported with Power Automate, but he wondered if the email needs to be on Office 365 Exchange online. They're still in the migration process at this stage.
Not actually sure. We've only ever used it within 365.
Yeah, I'd imagine that if you're in the migration phase, you could likely set up a mailbox that might not be fully with your domain, but it could have it on Microsoft domain, as they call it. So your organization.onmicrosoft.com would be the domain, but the name could be forms@yourorganization.com. So I'd imagine it would be, if you have an account and you wanted to enable it, you would be able to get started and then later on change it to something that's more specific to your domain. So yes, likely very doable during the migration or pre-migration.
Brilliant. And I've had a question from Juanita. She says, does this work with externals from your company? She's thinking she could use it for excursion forms for parents.
Definitely. So things like Microsoft Forms, you can set them up. There's a couple of different settings you can set as to whether people outside of your company can fill them out, or if it's just people within your company. If you were sending it to someone external, you'd want to make sure there was a way to capture their contact details, you know, who it is that's filling it out. So just make sure you pop that in there. If you're doing it internally, it picks up on who they are, so you get that information yourselves. And with I guess the rest of your flows, or the rest of your Power Automate runs, or whatever we want to call them, they can definitely interact with external systems and external people as well, depending on what you're using.
Brilliant. And Jenny asks, is it possible to have multiple approvers assigned to approve a document?
Yes, you can. So you can have multiple ones set across one approval, and you might need them all to approve it, and you can set that up. You can set it so just one needs to approve, and you can also set up tiered approvals as well. So once it gets through the first set of people, it can go through to the next lot.
Great. And Mina also asks, can it only link to other Microsoft apps? I think you've already answered that question. It can link to other apps. Do you know
there's
specifically?
300 and something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you know specifically if it could integrate to things like Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn?
Yeah, it does. It does integrate with all of those. Exactly what? Because yeah, there's a bit of a screen that has all of them, and so social media platforms like that, it does. Exactly what functionality? I'm not an expert. I don't know much about Instagram, to be honest either. Anyway, so but yes, the answer to that one is yes.
And someone asked, can it integrate with Xero?
It's got to be, but I'm not sure.
I don't actually think I've seen that in the integrations list as of yet, but it is the sort of thing that they are adding to pretty regularly as well. So if it's not integrated yet, for something like Xero, which is a pretty big app, I imagine it wouldn't be far off.
Yeah.
Okay, and one final question from Karen. It's quite a specific question. When you created a flow from the document library, did it auto create the status column and put it in the library view?
Yes, yep. So the first time you go and click on that button, because when I did the demo, I'd already clicked it once. The first time you click it, it's going to add that in for you as well. So if you're not seeing that at the moment, don't panic.
Wonderful. That's all the questions we have. So we've managed to get through that all really promptly today. Is there anything
Brilliant.
you guys had to wrap up before I wrap up today's session?
If you don't have anything, anything you had, Lucy?
No, nothing from me.
Look, I think I'm not sure if it seems like it, but we're quite passionate about this because it can make a big difference. It can be daunting to start with. Like if it was up to me when we started to implement this, I wouldn't have got it done. So we needed kind of the right person and Lucy to kind of be able to tinker. You know, as we said, she's not a technical expert or anything, but just have a willingness to tinker to get it done. And then from there, you just start to look at what else can be wrapped into this. Find something that's simple and then start from there. And even if you just identify, I would like to get this in Power Automate, that would be a really good outcome. And then work on it. Feel free to send us an email. We're happy to help. The form at the end that Chloe's going to put up, or the feedback form, it'd be really wonderful if people could submit that. And if you're interested in finding out more, there is a bit in there. So yeah, otherwise we're just really pleased to have you guys attending, and hopefully you're learning something. And feel free to email us any questions or give us some feedback, what you like, what you maybe would like less of or more of. We always want to do these better. So yeah, thank you very much.
And thank you, Conan and Lucy, for presenting today. That was an incredibly interesting session. It's motivated me to try and work out how I can block out my calendar automatically like that as well.
That's cool. Do it for the
That's
week.
one thing I took away. That's right. So thank you everyone for joining us today as well. I hope you've learned a lot from this presentation. I know I have, and that we've answered all of your questions. But if you do have any other questions come to mind, as Conan said, feel free to email them directly or email us at events@connectingup.org. And additionally, if you would like to learn more on Power Automate or any other cloud-based solutions for your organisation, like Conan said, please do take a moment to complete the survey at the end of this webinar and provide us with any of your suggestions and feedback as to what you'd like to learn about further. And don't forget that the recording will be available on our website very shortly, and a link along with the slide deck from today will be sent to you as well. So please keep an eye out on your inbox. Again, thank you for being with us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.